All right, thanks. I'm glad to see a full room. Go ahead and set expectations. We're going to learn how to do creative interactivity without doing a lot of code. I'll touch a little bit on code, but this is really about how you can add some new tools to help you tell stories online and mobile, and so it's kind of like the presentation layer of things. So this is journalism interactive, so we're going to experiment with something. So let's see if we can try to interact with each other. So if you will connect to onslide.com/go/596 with your mobile device, you'll be able to give me direct feedback. So here's the link right here, onslide.com/go/596. What we're going to do is it's going to allow you to tell me which tools you like and which tools you don't. So you'll have like an agree, disagree button. And so after I complete a tool, you can tell me, you should keep that in next time you present this, or that was a waste of my time. It may come out 50-50. We may see dramatic things, and it'll just help us learn and see what you like. I should say this is probably an alpha technology. It's not quite there. We'll see how it goes, especially with a large group. So we'll see how this goes. All right, so first question. Would you consider yourself a professor or a professional? Are you someone who's practicing? Go ahead and hit that button. Tell me if you're a pro or a professor. And we'll see kind of where the group falls. Sorry. The link is right there at the bottom if you can't see it. It has someone can retweet my last tweet. It's got it on there as well. So. You can't see it? So, all right, let me go back right here. You see that one? Huh? Yeah, that's okay. All it says is agree or disagree. That's okay for right now. I'll let everybody get connected. When I go back to that slide, you'll get it. Okay? So hang on. Okay. All right, we got a few people connected now. All right, so here's the question. How many are professionals and how many are professors? Go ahead and, can you submit the button? Did the button work?
Steve, let me just say, too, if you're having trouble reading the slide, it's on slide with a Y. Did you mention that?
Did I spell it wrong?
No, SLYDE, right?
Yeah, SLYDE.com. So, okay. So, it doesn't matter if it's upper or lowercase. It does? It's my fault. Okay. All right. We're going to forget this, all right? So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so we're moving on. I'm going to guess there's a lot more professors or academics here in the room than the professionals, but I wanted to get a sense of it. So you can ignore that, and we'll move on. If you've got it connected, feel free to stay along. So we're going to start with interactive infographics. So what are some tools that we can use? One of the easiest, and it was mentioned earlier today, is Infogram. Actually, a lot of the ones I was going to mention have been stolen by Mr. Hernandez this morning. That's okay. So we're going to start with Infogram. So this is an easy way. Oh, I thought I was already connected. So, this is an easy way for you to add interactivity and to build infographics into your projects. So it's a very simple interface with great design, as was mentioned earlier. So you can choose some of these templates to start with, and so you just click on it, and you basically can start typing. So, put in your information, and then you can add charts. So they gave me an example chart here. If I double click on it, you can choose exactly if I want to add a new chart. I can select what kind: bar graphs, column graphs, pie graphs, whatever I want, and click Add Chart. And then I have a new chart here. And now in this, I can put in my data. So it gives you sample data so you can get an understanding of what different the X and the Y's are going to be here, which the columns and the rows are going to be. But you can change this data out as simple as using a spreadsheet and put it in. What's also nice about it is if you have a spreadsheet formatted, kind of with the same columns and rows that you're going to want, you can just copy and paste right from Excel. So select them all right from Excel or Google Spreadsheets, paste it right in here, and it'll work right over it. You can also use the load data and actually upload a CSV file if you want it. So it's an easy way of kind of getting in data and playing around with it, and it gives you a nice visual presentation to that. And so there's lots of different things. You can also add multimedia. You can add photos, video, other pieces of text. I've seen people take this as far as basically building out an interactive story that was very graph-driven, so there's a lot of text, and then I've seen people use just one graph and then embed that one graph into their page, okay? So there's a couple of different ways that you can take this and make use of it. So there's, it's a really kind of easy, straightforward, easy to edit and change things. If you want it to have advanced settings and change the color, the sizes, all these different things, it's all there, okay? And then when you're done and you're really happy and you think, hey, I've got this really great chart, then you can embed it. So you click the share button, and you can share with, like, basically get email links and things. But what we really want in most cases is the embed title. So here's our link. Sorry, let me get the embed. Where's my embed? Oh, there it is. So you have to hit publish. Sorry, hit publish, and then you get it. And so you get a responsive, scalable embed code that you can put in any blog or article or wherever. So it's just the easy copy and paste into WordPress or whatever you want to do from there. Okay. All of these tools I'm going to show you, most of them have they have some type of embed code, and that's what we'll be using to kind of connect everything. Okay. So that's Infogram. That's probably your best, well-designed, very quick, make a graph and put it on a page thing, or make your own infographic that's interactive and shareable. Okay. So. Another one that's really strong and does some nice design that I like is this one called Pictou Chart. Okay. So Pictou Chart gives you the same type of thing. It's built very similar. Very similar to it, but it kind of works you in this wizard situation. So you put in the steps that you need. So you can create a new chart. Okay, and then so it kind of went ahead and built it for you. Where the other one is, you kind of add the graphs you need. This one kind of helps you to get started and gives you nice, good presentation. And it works the same way. You change out the colors and the background, the graphics. This one doesn't have quite as many graphic forms as Infogram does. So Infogram has most of the, if you think of all your fusion tables and the things that are available that way, it has all of those in Infogram. Theirs is a little bit more limited, but they still look good. So you can click on a graph, and then you can edit the data in the same way. This one lets you kind of see it live as you change it to what it will do. And so it's kind of a nice thing. You can set all your charts and the titles, X and Y axis, all down here. Change your charts. So there's also kind of an advanced options where if you want to make it like a stacked graph, you can turn those on. So each graph has their own special kind of advanced options, which are not really that advanced. I would say in most cases you'll probably use them. So, and then again, very easy. Publish, click the publish button, and then you get the embed code. A nice one about this one is you can just save out JPEGs. So with the free account, it puts a little watermark on it, but if you do the cheap paid, I think it's $9.99. So you can save out an image, which this is not a great image for this, but if you just did one chart, it's kind of a quick way to make a nice graph. And you can save it as an image, or you can make it interactive and use the embed code. So you want the embed code, you just click the HTML, and you click publish, and you'll get the embed code. So. What was the name of this one? This is Piktochart, okay? So, or Pictou Chart, I don't know how you say it. Pictou Chart, Piktochart, okay? So this is an example of saving out the JPEG, right? So I just put the JPEG into the presentation. All right, so timeline, again, timeline.js. You're going to hear several of these over and over again. This is a really strong one. How many people have used this before? Okay, great. So The great thing I love about Timeline.js is it uses Tabletop.js, which allows you to create and do things with Google spreadsheets. So if you can make a Google spreadsheet and you can copy and paste some embed code, you can use Timeline.js. Okay? So that's a really nice, a nice feature. They walk you right through all of the things you need to do. You can step through one step at a time. And if you can edit a Google spreadsheet, you can do this. So my students really like using this because they can kind of like directly like see it happen. I've seen people take it as far as like making YouTube videos. So we did like the history of presidential campaign ads. And so we kind of carried it on through and we just embedded different YouTube videos through the thing. And the nice timeline feature was a great slideshow for that. Or I've seen much more complex data timelines where it's a lot more presentation of textual information with maybe a graphic or two. But essentially, anything you can paste into a Google spreadsheet, you can make work in this. The downside to Timeline.js, unless they've changed it recently, is that you can't like use your own videos. You have to upload them through a service like YouTube or Vimeo and use the embed code for that. So, but since most of you have done that, I'm going to move on since a lot of you have done that, and it's a pretty easy, straightforward integration. So, okay. Now, another timeline tool, and this one is called Time Glider. And Time Glider works really well for really complex projects. So if you think of something that has a lot of data points on it, so you're thinking like you're covering the length of a war and you have so many different elements that come into it and lots of different media, it's not as visual with like the large media visual presentation. It's really much more geared to like moments in time. So I think there are two different tools for two different purposes. If you have something that's very visual and you have like large graphics, I would go with Timeline.js. If you have something that's very like lots of small facts and small nuggets, but it's over a long period of time, I would try Time Glider. So let me just show you an example. So this is the CIA leak case, and basically, most of this data came from the Washington Post when they were tracking this, and then we basically built this out to do this. So you can click on and see all of these different pieces that all come together to make the story. You can zoom in and out and kind of scroll across. And so this is kind of pieces things together in a much more like granular way. So, okay. Yeah, and this is, you basically build it in their tool and just kind of add new points on it. You enter the time of where you want it, and then it has embed code, and you just pull it right out. So, yeah. Feel free to ask me questions about these tools. I want you to pick up something from these. So, you can also create custom icons in it. So, they have added a lot of functionality over the last year. So, So they've added a lot of functionality that has made this a lot better. But just know that you have two timeline tools for kind of two very different reasons. So, okay. All right, so let's take a look at some mapping tools. We're going to start easy. So, so Google Maps is in the middle of a change. If you've seen the new Google Maps interface, they also have added a feature called Google Maps Maker. Okay. Now this is a preview. Google Maps Maker is one step of what is ultimately going to become like a Google Maps, like larger, like build out your own Google Maps kind of thing. And so I'm showing you this because it's like kind of the next step, but I'll show you how you can make your own custom Google Maps. Who's made a custom Google Map before? Good. All right. So if you've done that before, in the new interface, to make a new map, you just go here to create a new map. Go to My Places, and you can see My Maps, and create a map. And that's actually using the old interface. So it kind of switches you back to old Google Maps. And I'll quickly show you how to create a map. So I'm going to create a new map. Okay. And then it actually brings me back into this. So they've got some things to work out here. But you can grab any marker, put it wherever you want, and then put in your title. And then what a lot of people don't realize is you can actually put HTML code here. So any links or whatever you want to put, you can put a thumbnail that links to somewhere. So you can build out a pretty nice map in this, and you can add multiple layers, and you can even do like paths. So if you want to say like I did one like where I traveled this summer, those kinds of things. And, like, okay. And so you can do that, and then you can then embed those as well. So if you click on the File button, you get this embed to my site. You got to turn it public first. So I have to click Share. And now I get the embed code. Okay, and so you can copy and paste this. Now, this works for, let's say you got 10 or 12 points on a map and you're wanting to show specific locations or a simple locator of like, okay, where did this story happen? You can do that, change out your icons. You can do some very like kind of basic, simple, I would say 1 point up to like maybe 15 or 20 points. But when you want to take your map a little bit farther and you want to use like a large data set, then you probably need to look at other tools. So the next tool I would recommend is Batch Geo. And for education and small site stuff, this works really well. If you're at a really large media organization, the pricing doesn't make sense for you probably. But for student projects, for small school projects, the free version works pretty well. But what I love about this is the simpleness of I copy and paste right from Excel. I paste it right here, and then it walks you through the steps. You can select little drop down, and it makes your map for you. So if you have an Excel sheet of locations with addresses on it, it uses and kind of does all of that geocoding work for you and drops them all on the map. And then you can actually change out the icons. But all of this data was populated from an Excel spreadsheet. Okay? So essentially, once you get your Excel spreadsheet in a good place, then all you do is copy and paste, and you've got a nice map. It is using Google Maps, so the back, like it's using the Google Maps API, and so you basically can just take this and embed it wherever you want. Okay. So. Okay. So you create one, you save it, and then. And now you can embed it. The free version can have ads. I'll warn you that, the free version, but they have monthly plans if you want to do that. So yes, sir.
Steve, have you run into any issues with the embed codes on any of these in WordPress? I know that on Nycar this week there was some traffic about Document Cloud not embedding correctly.
Okay. So, one of the things that a lot of people have problem with the embedding is now there's so many sites that are using responsive design, and responsive design is a great tool for being able to get on multiple devices, and I totally support responsive design. But a lot of these embed code have a static width on them. And so you have to deal with that, and you want to basically make the width 100%. And so you can kind of run into problems embedding in responsive design. In most cases, if your site is public, and it's on the internet, you can get the embed code, should work. I'll warn you, if you're working locally, like you're on a single file on your desktop and you put embed code in, the browsers actually block the traffic because it's thinking it could be malware, somebody coming from a different site. So your iframes don't work locally when you're just working until you put them on a server, okay? But if you're using WordPress and you paste it in there, it should work. Yes?
Some of what they were running into was if you paste it into the text side of the editor, it's fine, but if you switch back to the visual editor, it destroys your code.
Correct. So WordPress and most content management systems kind of have the two-way of viewing it. They have the WYSIWYG version, the kind of text editing side, and then you have the HTML or the actual text, the raw text of it. And you want to, whenever you're pasting an embed code, you want to make sure you're choosing to use that raw text format. And the reason is that it thinks you're trying to make that code be regular text, so it throws out a bunch of the junk that it thinks is junk. So you want to make sure you're telling it, use it in the HTML. So yes. Mm-hmm.
Also, if you're using WordPress.com, your students are using that.
Sorry, yes, great clarification. So there's WordPress.com and WordPress.org. Okay, WordPress.org is where you download the code and you run it on your own personal server, or you run it on somebody like your web service. Okay. WordPress.com is where you're going to and you log in at WordPress.com. They have specific rules and ways that you have to do things, and I don't work a lot on that, so I don't know exactly how you get something embedded on there. But know there's a difference between the two WordPress worlds. And so they may have to have a plugin that you add on WordPress.com to be able to do embeds. Okay.
Yeah, WordPress.com wants short codes whenever possible.
Yeah, so they force the shortcode, so you have to have a plugin to do it probably. So, okay. So for students who are really trying to learn how to kind of like take that next step of interactivity and learn a little bit of code, we push them towards the WordPress.org world where they can build their own templates and kind of do their own customization. But for students that are like, mostly in their reporting editing track, they're working in WordPress.com most of the time. So. All right, so a few image tools. Thing link. All right, another one of those things hard to say. This is very simple. It's a little bit old, like it's been around for a few years, but it's really powerful in what you can do very quickly, because there's a lot of times you have an image that you want to annotate. You want to give contextual information about what you're seeing. That could be a static graph, like a static map that you just want to, you have an image and you want to put where the points are on the map, and you can do that very easily. Or you can do that with a photo you've taken. So I could take a nice panoramic of this room, and I could tag each one of you with your hashtag or your Twitter name and link that out, and so we could have a nice map of everybody who's here. So that's kind of a cool feature here, and so it's really easy to do. You log in and hit create, then you upload a photo. And being that I love the Kentucky Derby and it's coming up soon, I thought I would use this. So we have Churchill Downs. So this just could be a photo that was taken by one of the photographers, and you want to say that the twin spires were added. You could link to your story or whatever, but you want to say it was added in 1937. Okay. And then you want to say, there's the governor. Okay. And so you can see how you would, make use of this. And then you get a nice, so once you save it, you can then share it out, and you get your embed code right there. Okay. The back end or the front end? So what you're embedding on your page is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay. What they're running the app in, I don't know. So I don't know how I don't know what they're using to build this. It is some JavaScript that's going on here. It's not Flash, but like what you put on your page is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, so it'll work on any device. So, other ways I've seen this is you can basically a lot of large panoramas. This works really well. The Mars rover one you saw on the screenshot, that's a good one. And then you can kind of zoom in and see like what people, basically whatever annotations you have added to it, and you can put your own links. So it can be a navigational format too. Okay. All right. Who's seen PhotoSynth? Okay. All right. So this is a tool that came out with a lot of glory from Microsoft, and then it kind of faded away because it's in the Silverlight platform. But they are working to move this into much more of a mobile-friendly world. So the technology behind this thing is genius. It is some amazing technology working. And I'm going to show you an example of how we can use this to take people places where they can't really go. But this is going to grow and become something much better than what you see today. So this is kind of like the first version of it that came out, and it's still available, but they're working on a bunch of stuff behind the scenes. It may even have a new name coming out, but what's really nice about it is you go into a place and you take lots of pictures, hundreds and hundreds of pictures. Now, they could be taken by one person, or it could be crowdsourced, okay? But I could go through and just walk around this room and take hundreds of pictures. I put them in the system, and like say I took 300 pictures of this place, upload them, and it just stitches them all together in a panoramic world. Now, it takes several hours sometimes, depending on the photos. But you get kind of this like semi-3D panoramic experience. And so here's one that we did on the Washington Post a long time ago. But you can zoom in and keep zooming in and keep zooming in. And now you will be able to see the link in a way that you can't actually see in person. So I don't know if you can see from the screen, but this is very high res, and you can see like the dust on the face, right? So, so it's kind of a cool, just like taking people where they can't necessarily go. So it's another visual tool for doing that. But at the Lincoln Memorial, does anybody know the mistake on the Lincoln Memorial? Okay. So over here to the right, there's a mistake in his second inaugural address. So I can keep zooming in, and it's really hard to see with the naked eye, but if you know it's there, and you just keep going, okay. Copy editors out there, in Stone, it's supposed to say future, and it said future, which they have since fixed. But we can show you that through this technology that we couldn't really show you in person because it's way up higher than you can actually see. So, anyway, so just kind of taking people to a place where they haven't gone. And so the Washington Post, we called it Go There, and we did kind of several monument type places with this. But it's a lot of fun. And you can do it with your iPhone too, like basically take lots of photos and then just upload them all. So it's kind of a cool technology. Mm-hmm.
You're able to zoom in that well because you have photos of all of that, including that was
Correct. So I walked around the whole room and took hundreds of photos covering the room, the ceiling, the floor, everything. But then, like, if I was doing this room, I can actually go in and get details of very specific things. And then anything I got specific things, people could zoom in and do it, okay? The new version is going to allow you to put hotspots where you'll be able to put like links and things to what that is. So you could get contextual information. So imagine a Gigapan thing, right? Like you've seen Gigapan, where they take these and stitch a lot of photos together. Taking that concept, adding another layer of interactivity on top of that, and then you can embed that in your page. So right now it's on Silverlight is the web technology that your users would have to have. So that's who knows what's the embed of that. Anyone who's on Netflix is using Silverlight, so there are a bunch of them, but it doesn't work on iPad or mobile. And so that's the downside to this, but it's coming. All right, who's played with Google Sketchup before? Okay. All right, good. So Google has sold it, and so, but that's okay. It's still available for free, okay? And what's really nice about this is it's quick, it's easy, it's fast, and it's free, okay? So if you want to make a 3D image of something, you want to make a quick drawing illustration of something, this is a really good tool that you can learn in a couple of hours and be kind of like, making a lot of cool stuff with. It's easier than Maya or Away 3D. It's not quite as sophisticated, and maybe the textures and things don't look as nice, but if you spend enough time in it, you can actually make them look really good. I'll just give you a quick demo. So let's say I just want to create a room of where, let's say some news event happened, and we wanted to kind of like recreate the model of the room. We could come and draw the room, and we could actually put in the actual sizes down here on the right if we wanted to, and then I'm going to explode up, make it an 8-foot ceiling, and then I can take and remove a face of that wall, and now I can show this in lots of different perspectives. Sorry, wrong tool. Okay, I can show this in lots of different perspectives, and I can like rotate it around. Okay, so I can see and move around all the different locations. I could have cut out the ceiling. Maybe that makes more sense. Okay. Cut out the ceiling, and now you'd be able to kind of see in, and I can create a still image from this, okay? I can also create images, like multiple images, and put them together in a slideshow, or there's a lot of JavaScript things that like let you tie in images together, like a lot of PNGs together, and rotate them. So you can find one of these PNG rotator scripts, and then export all your PNGs from here, the images, and then you would be able to put this on your website, okay? So this is an extra step. It's like you make an image, and then you have to do something with it, but it's a quick way to make an image. Now, let's think breaking news here, okay? So let's say something happened at a stadium. So we'll we'll just try University of Maryland Stadium. Okay. So let's say there was a small fire at the stadium. Okay. I can click download, and it'll say, do you want to put this in your model? Okay. And someone has made this. They've publicly made it available, and it is a nice 3D model of this particular stadium. And I'm going to set it down right on top of a lady here, but sorry, this is a really big model, apparently. Come on. There we go. Okay, so now I have this 3D model of the stadium. And it may not be 100% accurate, but it looks pretty good, and it was probably done by an architect rather than a journalist. So the chances are it's going to be pretty accurate. And then I can move around and kind of show this from different angles. And so let's say I wanted to have a nice graphic to add on the page really quickly. I could just download this, put this in here, zoom into it, and say, at this spot is where the fire occurred, right? So it's a very just kind of simple drawing that you can do. And the fastest way to get an image out of it is Apple Shift 4 and make a screenshot of it, okay? So, out of SketchUp by itself, you cannot. It has to, like you have to just export the images, and then you can do whatever you want to. So essentially, you could go from camera view to camera view to camera view, and then drop it into a video editing program and use that and kind of create the animation, but exporting directly out of here, you can't. One thing I've seen people do is they record a screen capture of them actually working inside the window of Google SketchUp, and they just actually animate it with the arrow keys, and so you can actually kind of get that concept, and then you take that video and do something with it. So, yes, sir?
Are these models that are contributed, are they licensed for use for like profit and things like that, or are they?
So if you put it in the warehouse, you give over everything for it. So other than building it, you can't actually build with it, but you can actually, for copyright purposes, it's not a problem. So. Also, I'm a SketchUp nerd now, so when we were moving into our new house, I wanted to see if the sun was going to shine on my television screen. So you can, like, every IKEA furniture is in here, and so you can download the models. I built our living room basically in SketchUp, and I could see exactly. You can even, like, if you have it, oh, sorry, I should show this part. This is cool. On the maps, you can tie this directly to Google Earth and find a specific location and know exactly what time of year where the sun's going to come through the windows. And so you can like actually build and put this in a specific location. Like you can build the buildings on top of it, and then we'll just say select region. So, yeah, sorry, too big. If I zoomed in on that, you could set it right on top of it. Another thing I've used this for is combining Google Earth and Google SketchUp to scout locations before I got there. So we were shooting the US Open, and they weren't going to let us actually see where our camera positions were going to be ahead of time, but they told us where they were going to be. So we were able to to go to Google Earth and see that, and then put in the models from the clubhouse that were already in Google SketchUp and see exactly what our camera angle was going to be. So that was kind of a nice way of scouting ahead of time without actually going there. So I think SketchUp is a powerful tool if you learn how to use it and use it for the right purposes. If you're doing really detailed 3D stuff, then you probably want to learn Maya or Away 3D. But for something quick and easy, this is it. Okay, and so now I'm going to give you some kind of quick simple programming things. So the things I've shown in the beginning are things that my intro level class does. So they use this to build interactivity into their WordPress sites and things. This one is jumping into my intermediate class where they're building their own. but this is some very simple code things. They give you all the code you need. You just got to learn which pieces to change out. That's all you have to do in these cases, okay? So my favorite here for providing interactivity is the Mother Jones News Quiz. So the great publisher friends and coders at Mother Jones have open sourced this. And so it's a simple news quiz that they were using, and they put it on GitHub, and then you can download and use it. So you go down here and you click download the zip file, and you can put this on your site as an iframe. It's completely responsive, so it'll work on all like mobile devices or any size. But it's pretty nice, straightforward. You can click on things and kind of see if you got it right or wrong. You can put images in it. You can put videos. You can embed videos. And again, this one works with Google Spreadsheets. So the actual creating of the quiz, all you have to do is put it in a spreadsheet. Okay? But the code, you just copy and paste and put it as an iframe into your website. So it's a little bit extra stuff. Here's an example with images in it. And then at the end, it gives you kind of what you've gotten correct. And you can customize that message at the end. So it's like, hey, go read these articles, the ones that you missed, right? Or something like that. So here's the thing. I had a group of students, high school students, who were doing a hackathon. They started the day not even knowing what an HTML tag was. We did HTML, CSS, got into the basics of how you load in jQuery, and they were able to put this quiz into their site, and they had a website in like 12 hours, and they were able to implement this quiz. So I believe if you have just a little bit of knowledge of what HTML is, you would be able to do this. So don't be scared, because I said it has a little bit of code to it. So. And then Highcharts. So this is a very basic JavaScript visualization tool. And if you think of Infogram, and Piktochart, those are like the easy, has tools that make it easy for you to do. These take a little bit more coding to do, but they have a lot more power in kind of how you present the graphs and things. So they animate, they're stylable. But it gives you all the code here. So you click on this View the JS Fiddle, which is just a JavaScript way of presenting code to people. And here's the code that it needs to do it. Now, let's say you don't know anything about JavaScript. You guys are smart people. Guess what? You want to change out the month to something like people's names? Okay? You can figure that out. You come right here and you're like, oh, January, February, March, I'll make that John, Jane, and whatever, right? And then you want to say, okay, I need to change a series. So this is Tokyo. Looking at my map, all right. So Tokyo, I want to change that to baseball, right? And so you can figure out all you're doing is changing out numbers, and then you take this code and put it in your page, okay? So, and anything you change in here will, you can basically tell it, and it'll redraw it so you can see what it looks like, okay? So you do have to load in jQuery, and you have to load in the Highcharts JavaScript file, and then you copy and paste this code into your own thing, and you can start to work through and figure out what it takes to do it, okay? I really do believe you're smart enough to do it without having to know any JavaScript, okay? So if you don't know JavaScript, don't worry. You can go in and make these edits, okay? The great part about Highcharts is they have every single type of chart or graph you've ever thought of having. So you want to do scatter plots? They have scatter plots. You want to do whatever thing you can think about. You want to combine, like, let's see. You want to do a pie chart and, I don't know, scatter plot. You can basically put them all together, okay? So this is a really nice tool. We teach this as a stepping stone to D3. So D3.js is a little bit more complicated, but is a better visualization tool. And so basically the students learn this, and once they have a grasp of doing charts with this, then we step them into D3. Okay. So. Okay. All right. So what questions do you have? We can. I linked several of the tools that Kochi mentioned earlier. I linked them on my blog post as well, in addition to these. But do you have any questions as kind of how we teach this or kind of how we do this? We've got a microphone to walk around.
And please wait for the mic just because we're recording on video. Any questions?
Over there.
So how have you, wait.
Hold on 1 second for the mic.
So when you do maps in your classroom, hey, I'm Andrew. Thanks for that. That was terrific. When you're doing the maps, how responsive have students been to sort of that? Because, right, every news story starts with a location, right? Dubai. And then the story starts. So in some ways, that's like the building block of every news story is the location. How have they been with that?
How are they?
How receptive have they been with that?
So one of the things that I give them is I give them 10 stories that they have to add some type of extra thing to it. Okay, so I want them to, in this case, the story is about location, and so they build out a map. And in that case, it's a story about visuals, so they add a slideshow. And if it's a story about time, then they do a timeline. So I intentionally give them 10 very different stories that they've picked the story form to add to and work together. Okay, so in some cases, it's easier because it's like, oh, this is obviously a geography story, so they build the map. And so I force them to do that rather than saying, okay, make me a map for this story. I kind of make them figure out which ones. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's cool. Just, I'm a cartographer and I teach maps as well, so I'm always interested to see how other teachers are using that in their curriculum, because if you just tell them to make a map, they'll just make you a map, and it seems like you have a good set of steps.
So one of the things I've loved about our students who are going from the intro class all the way to the advanced class, so in the intro class, they're learning how to use the Google Map tool that I just showed you. In the intermediate class, they're using the Google Maps API. And by the time they get to the advanced class, they hate Google Maps now, and so now they're going to use Open Maps, or they want to use
Mapbox.
Mapbox, that's the one that we're using a lot of.
And that was my follow-up. Have you been following Mapbox? They're a DC company. They're obviously, they're a terrific group of developers.
So here's the great thing. I have never taught Mapbox, but I have 3 projects that are being done in Mapbox right now that my students are working on.
That's
because
awesome.
they've learned the basics of programming, and they've learned the visuals, and they know they like that better than the Google Maps, and so they went and learned it on their own. Okay?
That's awesome.
So that's been kind of a cool thing.
And then, and then just on the Google Maps thing, I didn't know if you'd been working with the Maps engine at all versus that particular map maker tool.
So for the easy map engine, that's kind of a quick and easy one as well. I probably could have shown that one.
Cool.
I was just sticking to the basic Google one, but you can use either one. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So if you're preparing kids to go into the workplace who are not necessarily coding people, but would need to know some basics, are these things that news sites use, or are these sort of on the fringe and they probably don't use these for their sites?
No, I think a lot of sites are using them or similar tools to them. So I think learning at the college level to tell a story with time and to integrate times and maps together, right? That's a good skill to learn as a storytelling skill, even if the tool you use changes at a professional organization. So sure, you were using Timeline.js, but then you get to CNN and they have their own timeline tool. That's fine too. You at least know how to tell a story with timeline, right? And so
it sort of translates?
yes, very much. I think they all do translate somewhat. It's just kind of a matter of like which ones do and where they're going.
Hey, besides a lot of these tools, the embeds being responsive, are there any of these or others that are really sort of geared for mobile? Like if you really wanted to start with an interactive or something that was primarily like for a phone screen?
If I was choosing the ones I showed you, the easiest one to make React responsive is the Infogram. As far as one that are specifically like, hey, you want to make for mobile, there's not one that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. You can do all the graphs and stuff that you can do in Illustrator. You can take and do with the Adobe Publisher, but as we've talked, that's not necessarily the best mobile experience either. I don't know of a tool out there that says like we make interactives for mobile, but I think most of my students at this point are, starting with, okay, I need to do this visualization. And how's it going to look on the smallest screen first? Because that's easier to that's the harder part is how's it going to look small, and then growing from there. And so we do a lot of that mobile first theory, especially specifically to graphs. But I don't know of a like one of these free tools that's geared towards mobile.
You mentioned that you use Highcharts as a stepping stone to D3, and I'm wondering how much JavaScript experience your students have before jumping into D3 and how much of a learning curve it is between Highcharts and D3. About how much time does it take them to really get the nuts and bolts of what D3 is all about?
So by the time we jump into D3, they already know how to load in XML and JSON and do AJAX requests. They already know how to basically do advanced jQuery stuff. So they're used to working with the library. So it's kind of like at the end of the intermediate level class. So they're pretty comfortable in JavaScript by that point. So if you're really committed and you want to learn D3, I think you can do it. I don't want to scare you away from D3 because it is a very powerful and useful thing. I've just found that it's easier to get students to think about story form and graphic form using Highcharts because they can see it quickly and not get so bogged down in the actual syntax of the code and making it work. So I just think it's a good stepping stone for teaching. But if I was just coming and starting to learn and I felt comfortable in JavaScript, I'd have no problem jumping right to D3.
We have other questions for Steven?
A hard thing with students is to get them to, when you're teaching a lot of code-heavy tools, to get them to get past the code and think about story and graphic form. And so I'm always looking for ways to get them thinking about the graphic before they think about the execution in the code. So.
The last time somebody handed me a mic, I was drunk in a karaoke bar, so I'll keep it short.
That'll be much more exciting, I think.
One thing, the question's about embedding things in responsive design. Embedresponsively.com is a great tool for that. It doesn't solve all problems, but I use it every day because Storify and Twitter, some of those already have embed code that's responsive, but not all. YouTube, Vimeo, and also it does iframes as well. It'll do Getty images. Embedresponsively.com is great. It's solved a lot of problems for me.
I've never heard of that. That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. Embedresponsively.com. And it's up on GitHub too.
We got one more up here.
So you mentioned that you offer your students a number of different stories that they have to then decide what kind of tool am I going to use to add interactivity. That sounds like they've already learned quite a few of those tools before they're branching onto the stories. So are you teaching them the tech first and then going for the application?
So what we do is kind of teach it all. It's all mixed together. So it's we talk about design and presentation before we start coding it. We talk about graphic forms before we start building a graphic. But ultimately, they kind of go hand in hand. And so the example I was just giving you, that's their final project. So at the end of the intro class, they know HTML and CSS. They have to build a WordPress theme from scratch for a magazine. And so they start with a starter blank white WordPress theme. They do their own design all the way up and build the code to it. And then they have 16 stories total that all have to get put into WordPress. So they basically are building out a magazine. Now the content is already created for them and all the assets are there. They have to figure out the best way to integrate those. But all the assets were made for print, right? And so what we want them thinking about is to take these stories and then how we're going to present them in that new magazine format. And so it's a lot of focus on kind of here's a story, what tools do you have in your toolbox can you use? So, yes, sir.
GitHub has been mentioned a couple of times here, and I'm just curious, in this audience, how many people are using GitHub?
Okay.
And how many people are requiring their students to use GitHub?
All right. So my my intermediate and my advanced class, they're required to turn all of their code or all of their projects in on GitHub. I don't grade it if it doesn't come in through GitHub. What's great is the way if they have a question, they post an issue through GitHub. And then the whole class can see it and we can kind of talk through it. And a lot of times what's even great is students are beating me to the answer, and so they're answering the questions before I get a chance to. And so I'm a big fan of GitHub. Once you learn it, it becomes your main workflow tool. And so by the time my students are getting to the advanced class, they are really confident in just working away in GitHub, and they're forking and doing all kinds of stuff with it. So I like it. The other thing that's really nice is to be able to track progress. So you want to see a student if they've actually did everything the night before. Like you can see how many commits they had and what time they committed. And so there's a lot of tools that I like to kind of check it. Not that I'm checking behind them, but I want to see why they didn't do so well, and I can see if they procrastinated or not, right? And so I'm a big fan of using GitHub. I don't do it in my intro level class, but as far as my intermediate, my advanced classes that are very code heavy, they are using GitHub, and I run my syllabus and everything through it.
You do everything on a WordPress platform?
So the question was, do we do everything in the WordPress platform? So intro class, they learn a CMS, and we teach WordPress as that CMS. The intermediate class is all focused on JavaScript, HTML, CSS, or really advanced CSS and JavaScript, and there's no content management system at all. It's static pages and working with pulling in Ajax data. And then in the advanced class, we teach Python Django. And so they go pretty deep on the Django side and build out full database-driven applications in Python.
I'm brave enough to say I have no idea what you mean by Django.
That's okay. So basically we start in WordPress, and for those very specific coder data journalists, we take them even deeper levels.
Is that a WordPress thing? Django?
So Django is Python. So if WordPress is on PHP, Django is a framework on top of Python. So just the different languages. So.
Any other questions for Stephen?
No, I'm afraid.
If you do want to pick up a little bit of JavaScript, we are doing a workshop on intro to programming using JavaScript.
Steve, right here.
Looks like we got one more.
A couple more, yeah.
Oh, two more. We got time.
Do you do anything with your students on like how to get these things to load in a page in a reasonable amount of time? Like, you know, because you see all these embedded things on pages and it just makes the pages load so slowly. Is there anything that you, kind of tools or hints that you give them on that?
So we talk about user experience, and one of the big pieces of user experience is wait time. And so we use the 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay, so I need to see something in 1 second. I need to be able to get some information in 3 seconds. And if you make me wait, 5 is fine. If you make me wait 7 seconds, I'm gone. Okay, so we do progressive, 1, 3, 5, 7, right? That's kind of our main thing there. And so we make them think of how to do that. We use JavaScript libraries to do that. We try to like load things at the bottom of the page versus the top of the page. And so we make them think about it. It's not necessarily like part of the syllabus where today we talk about load times, but we're always talking about user experience. And then I force them to go through different, just go online and find something that shows you the time. We teach them the console in the browser. So like you can use console in Chrome, and it'll show you exactly all the network requests and how long they took to load and what loaded first. And so once they see that, then they can switch the orders around and kind of make sure you're getting something initially. So we also talk about optimizing images and things, but just more into like discussion over the semester.
Got a question over here.
I just have sort of a practical question. For example, if I want to create sort of a map that has some charts in it too, can some of these tools link? For example, just showing, comparing the size of a certain community within different U.S. cities in this map. Can I integrate some of these on Google Map or?
Yeah. So there's a limited amount of things you can do on Google Map. You can they don't let you put script tags in there, so you can't take a graph from one of these tools and put it in the Google Map. You can link them, but you can do it if you start to get into the Google API, right? And so you start using the Google Maps API. If you want to learn those next steps of JavaScript, you very much can do that. With the free tools, you're a little bit limited as to what you can. But some of the tools have maps built in them. So Infogram has a map that you can work and kind of put a little bit of, I think there's a little bit of graphing you can do with it. But as far as like taking graphs and putting them on Google Maps, you probably need to know a little bit of JavaScript to do that.
Probably have time for one more question if anybody has one.
So are all of the
sites you showed us, are any of those apps that you could use on an iPad, or do you really need to be creating this content on a desktop?
No, most of them have either a site that works well on an iPad, or it's just responsive. Like, I'm sorry, it's responsive, or they have their own app. So Infogram, I think, has their own app for it. But most of them work that way. So I think you could do most of it on iPad. All right, one quick my public service announcement. So I believe that we're at a tipping point between the athletic and the academic world, and I have made a proposal to the NCAA where we're trying to make some changes. So if you want to check out onfieldinfield.com, if that's something of interest to you, I'd love to have your support and you be involved in that. We're trying to spread it around to lots of college campuses to hopefully get reform in the academic athletic communities. So we're trying to help student athletes be successful on the field and in their field of study. So onfieldinfield.com if you want to be involved in that. But my stuff's linked on my website, so if you need to find any of this stuff, it's all there. So thank you very much.